Hello, I'm TSgt Jordan, and today I'm going to give you my leadership presentation. More specifically, a time when I had to apply leadership and management concepts to make sure that something was better and to fix a problem that we had. The problem. So the problem that we had was oftentimes when we're TDY and deployed, hydraulic lines break a lot. When these lines break, the aircraft is no longer mission capable. When this happens, we often have to reach out to sheet metal to fabricate lines, and usually when this happens, if you're TDY, this can take up to 2 days, 3 days, maybe sometimes 4. It just depends, and that depends on if the line, if it comes, if it even fits. Or if you're deployed, it can be a day turnaround, or it can be hours, and oftentimes you can end up missing a real-world mission because of it. So because of this inconvenience, we missed out on a lot of flying exercises as well as real-world missions. Both leader and manager. As a hydraulic NCOIC, I both lead and manage my section. With both my position of power and person power, I decided that something needed to be done about what was happening. As hydraulic technicians, we can actually build temporary lines from scratch. However, they don't teach this in tech school or FTD anymore. So I diagnosed the issue a little deeper, and turns out about 75% of my technicians did not know how to build lines from scratch. So after diagnosing that issue, I decided that all 50 of my technicians needed to learn how to build lines. But before I could do that, I needed to build a team because I couldn't do it alone. And I had to find the NCOs that have the experience that I have to roll this out as well as teach it. So this is where my planning phase began. So in my planning phase, well, before I actually started my planning phase, I knew I needed a team of NCOs that had the same experience that I had with what I was trying to teach. So I selected NCOs based on the criteria with well-roundedness, ability to be flexible with different learners. So building my team, which was still in my planning phase. All of these guys, I gave them free range to fall in the position that they wanted to fall in. But also me being an NCOIC, I know my guys and I know my NCOs. And knowing them, when they fell into their positions, they actually fell into the position that they actually fit. So Staff Sergeant Maya Redding, those were my creators. They were tasked with coming up with a plan, how we're going to teach this class, what are we going to teach in the class, and the best way to make it general so we could appeal to all technicians. Swidinowski and Croft, those were my executors. They were tasked with finding out what materials we need, finding out how much of it we have, how much we have allotted to us, and things of that nature. So we know how much material we need, how much we have, and so we'll know what we have to work with. Staff Sergeant Lamb, he was my refiner. So oftentimes Lamb is he is actually the best trainer that I have. So oftentimes we come up with training plans for new airmen that come in. He looks at the training plan, and there's a lot of times where he says, we need to take this out, this is no longer applicable. Or, hey, we might need to add this in. This is something that doesn't happen often, but they might run into this down the road if they're TDY and they're by themselves, so they need to know it. Staff Sergeant Pennington, he was my advancer. He was tasked with making sure that everything moves along in these stages once we got everything together. That's one thing Staff Sergeant Pennington is good with, making sure that everything moves forward, making sure it's moving at a steady pace. If there's a holdup, he's always asking questions and things of that nature, and that's why I chose him for that position. So also with choosing this team and with the positions that they fall in, they work really well together. Their team performance is really well. They have a lot of morale. Their team dynamic is great because they just have a lot of chemistry. So with choosing this team, the pep stage was short, and also the Z was pretty much perfect with the way that they execute everything. So that was the reason why I chose that team. In the planning phase, I gave my team my scope, I gave them my timeline. There was no problem with cost, so there was no reason to go over the budget. And I gave them what I expected as far as quality and performance. Also, in the planning phase, I made sure to let them know that they have creative control, and I empowered them with this project, because I believe when you give individuals the space to perform, they actually perform a lot better when they're not being micromanaged. So, and as expected, they killed that with the creative control. Also, together, we went through the 5-step process of planning, which really I actually let them do that. I was just there to make sure that I monitored and controlled it, and was there for any questions that they might have. With being the NCO, I see I'm more than just a manager. I'm a leader as well. So when those guys needed mentorship on questions with how they're rolling this out and what they wanted to do and things of that nature, I was there for that. So the 5-step process of planning, we were there for that. I was there for that, and they did a really great job on it. And like I said, the pep stage was short, the Z was short, and they moved very fluently with this process. So, and also make sure to monitor and control. I trust my guys, but also as a manager with rolling this project out, this was something that I had to make sure it got done and got done in a timely manner. So I made sure to check up on them, see how they're doing, here and there, where are things at, are you hung up anywhere, and things like that. So the execution when it all came together. So when it all came together and it was said and done, we ended up holding 6 classes to ensure we included every hydraulic technician, because we don't want any airman left behind just in case if they had a class that day or, so on and so forth, a medical appointment, anything. Each class was taught by 2 NCOs to ensure accommodation with training styles. I believe that, every airman learns differently. So I switched the NCOs up with every class. None of the 2 NCOs worked with the same NCO if they taught the class again. So I made sure that they kind of swapped, and it was actually a great success. They all do a great job of adapting, things like that, especially when airmen are having a hard time learning things. So that was one thing that I took into account, and that was the reason why I also switched them around as far as making sure, with training styles, I have some guys that are a lot more patient. I have some guys that are a little more technically sound. So that ended up working very, very well. So the impact. With being a project manager, using the skills that were learned in this lesson, I was able to make sure that things were done on time. I was able to make sure that it was very precise. I was able to make sure that everything was rolled out perfectly. And with those manager skills, project manager skills, it made sure that the project went on without a flaw. And also with the leadership side of it, giving those guys complete creative control, knowing my guys, knowing where they needed to be, know exactly where to put them to make sure that the project was a complete success. So the overall impact was great. Everything in this lesson that was taught was everything that I implemented, and it made sure that this went very smooth, fluent, and we actually rolled it out pretty fast. We actually were able to roll that out within a week. So with the project manager skills and with the leadership skills, being there to be able to also, hey, maybe we should tweak this. Or when they had any questions like, hey, what can I do better? Being there to be able to tell them what I think they could do better to make it better. So all in all, the impact was that it went on without a hitch, and now every single one of my technicians know how to build temporary lines. And what it did was also make sure when we're TDY, it made sure that we can continue the missions and not miss them, because now my guys know how to build temporary lines until they get back to Tinker, where they can have the line fabricated. And when we're deployed, it makes sure that we don't miss a real world mission at all in the time when we're waiting on a line to be fabricated. So the overall impact was that we're actually completing missions and we're not missing out on exercises. So thank you for your time.